Okay, my name is Barbara Boshin, and I'm from Co-Merchant and Jersey Amazon Meetup. Shakra Yandapali, who is also on the call and running this, is from Jersey Amazon Meetup and from Jungle Books. And he and I have gotten together to sort of bring some information out into the world. We used to have our in-person meetups, and now we have our online meetups. And I think we'll continue this because so far it's been well received. Tonight before I forget, please be sure to join our Jersey Amazon Meetup group if you're not a member, so you can be notified of future online events, as well as Amazon Custom and Exclusive, which is my little Amazon group. Again, so we can notify you, and we record all these, so if you want to go back and watch them later, you'll have access to them. Tonight, Abe Chomali, my good friend, has agreed to come on to give us some more information about PPC. As always, you can write your questions in the chat and I'll work them in. Abe has been helping people not just make their PPC more efficient, but to help grow it. He has a service that basically manages PPC for Amazon sellers so they don't have to, which as you get bigger and bigger is huge, because at some point it's just, much more than a simple auto campaign. But he's going to give us some idea on what the basics are for those people who are new to PPC, as well as where you can go with it and how it can work for you. So Abe, thank you very much for being here. I'm so glad you could make the time to come on with your busy duties going back and forth to Florida. And no, just kidding. But really, thank you very much. I do appreciate you taking the time out to give us a little bit of an education.
Great, my pleasure.
So let me think, where should we start? I think one of the first questions I wanted to ask is, there's a lot of noise I hear going around in the Facebook groups, like, oh, it's, table stakes now, you have to advertise or you're not going to sell anything. And I wanted to get your opinion on whether or not you think you have to advertise on Amazon to get a sale, or if they're just going to, you're going to obviously be better with it, but what is your thoughts?
Right. So for a while now, Amazon has not only wanted you to advertise, but they've almost required it. Amazon has an internal checklist whenever they look at any listing in their system. And the checklist includes a whole bunch of things. It includes, is your image of a certain size? Is your main image? Is it on a clear white background? Is your title a certain length? Do you have 5 bullets? Do you have 7 images? Do you have A+? They have a whole checklist for what they want to be there in a listing to be fully optimized. And part of the checklist is advertising running on this ASIN. It's actually something that's in their system. So if there are 2 ASINs that are essentially identical, one is being advertised and one is not, Amazon will give a little bit extra preference in their system to the one that's advertised. So that's one reason that you'll want to have advertising of at least some amount, whether it's large or small, you want that checked off in their system. But there's a separate issue now. Amazon more and more, and you'll see this if you go on Amazon as a shopper, Amazon is giving more and more space to listings that are advertisements. There was a page on a marketplace website that was discussing this, and they showed a breakdown of what a regular Amazon page looks like. You basically have to scroll down anywhere from 3 to up to 5 rows or more before you'll see an organic listing. The top row of the page is a sponsored brand ad. The first 4 listings are often sponsored product ads. Below that, there might be a list, a group of 4 products that Amazon makes themselves, great options from our own brands. Then there'll be a list of editorial products, things that are reviewed by outside websites from Amazon. You might have seen those lately. So you're going down several rows before even the first organic option shows up. If you are not in one of those upper rows, there's a very reasonable chance that the customer has already made their shopping choice or made several clicks to do investigation before they even see you. And that's if you're one of the top 4 organic spots. If you're in the middle of the page or very low, you're really, really affecting your visibility. So yeah, table stakes is a good way to put it. Now, there is a whole conversation around how much it's worth it to spend to be on top, or whether you even want to be on top. There are all different aspects to that. But just as far as should advertising be running, Yeah, it's really important to the visibility of your products. And without it, there will be other people advertising, taking that spot and that chance for a sale away from you.
Yeah. So I think that, I always think when I'm evaluating a product that I'm going to sell, whether it's private label or wholesale, I'm always looking at what the margin is. But I've started changing that now, not just to be after Amazon fees. I'm like, okay, I think in my head that I've got to add 10 points or 15 points or some number. I don't really have it yet codified. That I go like, it's not just 100% ROI. I've got to make some. I've got to. Used to be like, oh, just spend some money in advertising. Now I'm like, I've got to actually make an allowance for that. And some of the products that I might have entertained in the past, I'm like, no, not unless I can do something really low budget on an advertising campaign because the margin's just not there. All right.
It depends on how much you want to sell. That's also a big factor.
That's true. I want to sell as much as possible, but not at a loss. So, that's.
So one thing that might be a consideration in those cases is you might want to be selling as much as possible and not at a loss, but are you willing to maybe go even for a certain amount of time until you build a certain sales volume? Mm-hmm. So if you say, listen, I want to sell $100,000 a month of product. In order to get to the 100, you might have to be run even or run with a very low margin or even with a slight loss to get to that 100K. Once you're at the 100K, you'll be able to make some adjustments to improve your profitability while still holding that sales growth. But if you're making all those adjustments at 10K, you won't get to the 100.
Mm-hmm. I think it depends. I think that's a great point. It just depends on the product and the position. Is it your private label? Is it wholesale? Is it whatever? There's strategy at every level. So let's pull back and think about if you are a new seller, right? You just got on and like, I know from my perspective, this was overwhelming. This was like, all right, I've got to take a day, there's analysis, there's so much that you can do. And once you got it all figured out, Amazon changes it again. So that there's another level of complexity. So it used to just be all automatic campaigns and then there were manual. Now you could do all these things. If I'm a new seller or I'm I wouldn't want to say a hobby seller, but it's not what I mean. It's just like, I'm not $100,000 a month, which I would say is someone that's got some established, to get to that level, you've done some hard time, especially with Amazon. But what are the things like I need, like, what's my little toolkit? Like, PPC 101.
Right. So I think that a large part of that is going to be based on what you're selling on Amazon. So, for example, if you are selling products that you get wholesale, you'll want to look at the issue of PPC differently than if you're selling something that's private label, and that will be different than somebody who is selling something that they buy through arbitrage. In each case, all of those are ways that people start on Amazon, and they're all completely different. I mean, I know that you have had exposure in all three different types of product sales, and they're all really different. You source differently, you have different expectations of profit, you have different expectations of product availability, and all those, just like they factor into how you run all the rest of your business, they factor into how you'll run your advertising. Right. So if you're doing arbitrage, for example, there are going to be a lot of times where advertising might not necessarily work because you've already bought it with the expectation that it'll turn quickly. So you don't need an extra push from Amazon. And in addition to that, you're not going to be getting any replenishment of stock in a lot of cases. So something that you got as a one-off or as a two-off, there's no benefit to you to build the rank on that because you're just building it for whoever is going to have their inventory in a month from now. That's not helping you with your own products. So
that's going to be a table stakes thing. Kind of thing.
What do you mean by a table stakes thing?
I'm going to have, if I'm selling this RA thing and you're selling this RA thing and I have advertising, I'll get the buy box maybe a little quicker than you will.
Yeah, that's correct. So
I'll do like a little 5 cent challenge, like tiny.
So one of the things that is great about advertising, and this applies to any products where you're sharing a buy box. So whether it's arbitrage or whether it's wholesale, both of those are situations where you might be sharing the buy box with someone else. One thing that happens frequently with advertising is if you're in the rotation for the buy box. So if there's several sellers at map of $30, if you are part of that rotation of people who are eligible for the buy box and you are running an advertisement, your ad will run, and at the same time that the organic has another spot on the page. The organic spot will have whoever is getting the buy box at that moment, even if it's not you, but your ad spot is going to have you as the buy box for that click through. So that's going to be a benefit to you. So it only runs when you actually have the buy box, and they'll force it. So 2 different spots on the page will get 2 different buy boxes, or 2 different sellers getting the buy box. So that gives you a little bit extra of the share of the people converting for that sale. I mean, they want the product anyway, but you'll sell more than you would otherwise. That turns your goods around faster. It gives you your cash back faster to buy whatever your next product is.
And if you're maintaining, and if you're doing a low budget advertising campaign, then it probably makes sense.
Yeah, depends on your margins. Listen, if your margins are strong or you have a lot of inventory, in those cases, you might want to spend even more, depending on how fast you want to turn your goods. There are sellers who, even when they're doing arbitrage or wholesale, they're buying SKUs in the hundreds and thousands. And in those cases, you want the goods to go fast.
Yeah, then it almost becomes, I wouldn't say private label, but I mean, it's an investment. It's not like, if I never sell it, I'll just discount and get rid of it. I've got 100 of these. It becomes material, right?
It becomes material. It definitely becomes material. One thing that I've seen is that sellers who are selling wholesale products, if they're buying it directly from the manufacturers and they are using advertising to become one of the top sellers in that space, they can use that as a leverage to get from the manufacturer co-op money. Because they explain to the brands that, listen, yes, 9 people are selling your Hershey bars, but here's the thing. When I'm running advertising, although they would have bought the Hershey bar anyway, because that's what they're looking for, if there's no ad running for your specific product, the other competitors like Mr. Goodbar or Dove or whatever it might be, they're all going to take up the top of the page, and you might lose sales even though people were looking for you. If they have to scroll down, you have a chance of losing it. So it is in your interest. I'm going to
put that in my mix when I'm talking to them. I don't think I pulled that little rabbit out of a hat for them. I'll have to do that when I'm talking to how relevant, me advertising for you is.
It's really relevant, especially when you're speaking to smaller brands that you might wholesale, because they're almost definitely not running any advertising. And almost definitely there are competitors that are showing up when you search those brand names. So you want to explain to them that, listen, as part of working with me, I'm going to do the work of promoting your product and of capturing the customers that are interested in you. The worst thing is for you to have done all the work to get that product popular and then losing the sale at the last second when they're ready to buy.
Yeah, especially since down below, other people also looked at, and and you can see the Mars and the other different candy bars or whatever down below.
100%.
So I know we sort of covered this, but I just want to make sure I do ask this question. So when do I start advertising? So I do that right away? When do I start doing is there a point in my evolution as a new seller that I should be doing that?
So we'll go back to the first part, which is it depends what you're selling. Okay. But for most situations, you'll want to sell it right away. You'll want to start advertising right away, rather. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So if you are selling private label, or if you're selling even wholesale in a situation where you're bringing the product to market, it's a new SKU from that manufacturer. Right when the product comes onto Amazon, there is what's called a honeymoon period. Basically, what Amazon does is they give a little bit of ranking preference to any new product that comes onto the platform. And they do it for a simple reason. If they didn't, if the only way to be established was to have a long track record, the established products would never, ever give up their spot, and there would be no innovation ever.
Right.
No new product come into a space. That's it. And in some cases, the new products are actually better than the old products, whether it's a new competitor coming to market or whether it's even a new version from the same
latest
manufacturer.
color or the style or whatever.
They'll never show up. They'll be on page 46 and they'll never be able to move up. It will stay static. So what happens is there is an initial period of between 30 and 90 days. I've heard 30, I've heard 90. It's hard to test. There are people who says that they've spoken to people inside Amazon and they say it's 90. No matter what, there is some period of time where Amazon is giving some preference to those products that first hit the platform. And it's an experiment where they want to see if shoppers that see the product will like it and buy it. And it's your job to make sure as many people as possible buy it during that time. Some of it will happen from the organic positioning, but a lot of it is going to happen from the traffic that you drive yourself. So you want to do it with ads. There are people that do it with giveaways. There are people that do it with advertising that is off Amazon, like TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. They're doing whatever they can to get people to come to Amazon and send that signal that it's a good product. And that'll lead to a long-lasting rank, or longer lasting than it would have faded off otherwise. The only situations where you might not need to run advertising at the beginning is if you have an expectation that it will sell and sell out quickly. So there's, like, in certain wholesale situations, you're selling a product that you know is going to move no matter what. Then you might want to just throw it up and see what happens to it. Or like I said, there are a couple of small situations where you might not want to advertise at the beginning, but in general, you want to help the products move. Okay.
So here's the next question. I'm a new seller and I've got some products and I've decided that it is appropriate for me to advertise. What do I do? Like, there's so much out there. I mean, you open that tab up and there's 3 different types of product, or maybe more, and there's this over here. Like, how do you make my world small so I can understand what I need to do as, starting out?
So Amazon tries to simplify it a little bit themselves by offering 2 main types of ads. I mean, they've got 30 different kinds of ads, but they have 2 main types. And the ones you'll use depend on how well you know your products. So one type of ad is called an automatic campaign. Basically, you add the product to an ad campaign. Amazon looks at the ad with their smart computers and they say, oh, this product belongs here. You have a Hershey bar, it belongs in a search for Hershey bars, and it belongs in a search for milk chocolate, and it belongs in a search for candy bar. It belongs in a search for 2-ounce chocolate, or whatever it might be. They're looking at your listing, they're figuring out all the things that they can figure out about it, and they do the work of putting you in those spots. If you don't know anything about your product, that works. It'll be a minimum level of effectiveness. The difficulty there is that the system is not always so good at telling you exactly where you belong. So if you have a t-shirt, they won't always factor in the fact that your t-shirt is black, and they might show it for searches for green and red t-shirts. So in those cases, you will probably be wasting some money that you could have spent a little bit more effectively had you put into place manual campaigns. Now, the manual campaigns do exactly the opposite of the auto campaigns. Those are campaigns where you tell Amazon where you think your product belongs. So if you've decided exactly what your chocolate bar is, you're going to tell Amazon, listen, I want to show up for Hershey's dark chocolate with walnuts. And you tell them exactly what those search terms are, and Amazon will drive traffic there. That's definitely a little bit of an oversimplification, because you can decide how exact you want to be. So you can tell them only exactly that term, or maybe you'll tell them it's okay to add words at the beginning or the end of whatever term you chose, or you can tell them it's okay to scramble the words around or use similar words. So if you're selling cutlery, for example, you'll tell them that you want to use cutlery, but they'll automatically say, oh, it works for silverware also, or flatware. So there'll be situations where you tell Amazon it's okay to make that substitution, and there'll be situations where you say, no, I only want to show for exactly cutlery. That's it. I don't want to show for flatware for some reason. And that depends on how well you know your product. From there, there is a lot more that you can go into. There are video ads, there are sponsored brand ads that run across the top of the page. There are ads that follow shoppers all around Amazon and all around the internet. There's several dozen options that you can put into place depending on how detailed, how extensive you want to get, and how far you think your product can go. There are times where you'll want to target a shopper only at the exact moment they're ready to buy. And there are some times where you'll want to build your brand. And building your brand is more of a long-term investment where you'll be putting your product in front of people's faces with an expectation that it'll be several times or weeks or months before they're ready to purchase. But you're willing to pay for that while the purchase process is being figured out by the shoppers.
Right, in the hopes that that's going to make a long-term customer, first customer, return customer, and that investment's going to have a reward. There's one thing, like we talk about retail arbitrage and wholesale, where you've got a whole basket of goods and you may have a handful. You don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. Like, you buy some wholesale things and, I don't really know these products that well. And I got like every style they had or every color they had. And my RA stuff is, basically everything that's scanned positive, I threw it in the basket. There's been a lot of talk about the bulk advertising campaign. So basically I throw everything in there that I'm not already advertising one way or another. So I call it a big pile of crap. And then I bid low for it. But at least there's like a little mark on it that says, yes, you have been advertised. Do you feel... People have only been able to nobody's given me anything more than anecdotal, like it works, things are selling, but like, are they, so I don't know if it's better to, what's your thought on that? Like I shouldn't. Okay.
So it's more than nothing, that is some advertising as opposed to not having any advertising, of course. There are technical problems with doing that. But again, I'm not going to say there is no value. There is definitely value. It is pushing some more of your inventory at usually a low cost, and it's running advertising that didn't exist before. So you have a chance to sell a few more units. You have a chance to do it without a lot of overhead, and it's a piece of your system. Now, having said that, there are technical issues with it. The first issue is that every single time there is a search, Amazon has to look at your entire inventory to figure out which product is appropriate for that search. So if you're a sneaker seller and you've got Nike and Reebok and Adidas and all of those, what might end up happening is that it's got to look through all of those listings in order to figure out what listing to show for that search. And it might not make the right decision. In fact, a lot of times it will not make that right decision. So there's a problem there. The second thing is that if you are selling if you have inventory and you want to sell more than 1 or 3 or 20 units, you want to rely on that automatic campaign to give you information about what sells. You want to know not only what products sell, but how people found those products. And the problem is that in an automatic campaign where everything is dumped in, Amazon does not tell you what search led to which product being sold. You'll see a screen which has all the products, and it'll say this product sold 2 units, this product sold 9, this product sold 12. And there'll be a separate tab which says Nike green sneaker size 8 sold, and this ASIN sold. And there'll be like 25 different searches, but you can't tell which search matched to which SKU. So if somebody looked for black high tops, you can't tell which of your 19 models of black high tops sold. All you know is that that term made a sale. And in a situation where you have a term that's performing well, you literally don't know anymore how to work off of that good converting term. So it's an issue. And it happens sometimes that I'll look at a search term report where there's a lot of sales, and you'll see the exact search term made like 3 sales and 5 sales and 6 sales. So why doesn't it just say that this made 11 sales? Why is it 3 and 6 and 5? Well, the reason it says 3 and 6 and 5 is because each one was for a different product. But they like this term made 3 sales for this SKU, 3 sales for this SKU, and 3 sales for the third SKU. But they don't tell you which are the 3 SKUs.
Okay.
So you want to structure things. If you want to get into advertising more effectively, you need to do it more in more detail than just dumping everything in for 2 or 5
more
cents.
systematically.
Yeah.
So to your answer is it's better than nothing. Yeah.
It's better than nothing. Yeah, but
That's
it's
about
not
all
even.
this is good for.
I
It's
want to
better
be
than
clear.
nothing.
It's not a dismissive. It's better than nothing.
Oh,
Like some
okay.
people, it's not terrible. No, there are sales, and they are inexpensive sales, and it's helping your goods move. But yeah, everything else is better than that.
So you mentioned you mentioned the search term reports. How often should you be looking at your search term reports? Like daily, weekly?
Depends how obsessive you are. There are different pieces of
Annually?
information. Listen, there are different pieces of information that you'd get out of a search term report, and depending on what purpose you need it for, that is going to be a big driver of how frequently you look. So if you have an account which is spending a lot of money, you might look at it even daily in some cases, because you are always going to be looking for search terms that you want to negate. Search terms that are spending a lot without making sales, or that are making sales expensively. You'll want to cut those out. And
Right.
you need to get them before they spend way too much. If they spent like $19 for a single term with 100 clicks, it's not converting. You want to get rid of it, or make an adjustment or something. But you don't want to wait an entire month until it's spent 30 times that amount.
Yeah.
In other cases where you have a more mature account, or an account which is spending smaller amounts of money, you might be able to work with once a week, once every couple of weeks, once a month. One of the things we do with the accounts that I manage is we look for search terms that have sales in order to give them more detailed advertising. So say, for example, I'm advertising, a water bottle. And I advertise the term water bottle, but I tell Amazon, listen, you can add words onto the beginning or end of it as you see fit for this product. So it's better than an automatic campaign, but there's a lot of leverage. And it turns out that you're getting a lot of sales for blue 24-ounce water bottle, non-PTA or whatever PFC or whatever it is. It turns out that you're getting a lot of sales for that, even though you didn't ask for that term. So you want to extract that term and start bidding on it more aggressively, because it converts for you. So those are the things. If
you don't already have it in your listing, you might want to throw it in there too.
That is another. That is
some
another
semblance of it, but yeah.
Depending on how well your listing is built out, either you'll have that or not. But that is another. Of course, that is another reason you'll want to pull those terms. And if you're familiar with the product, you'll be able to tell what's working or not.
Okay. So I'm going to get into like heavier things, but I want to just touch on the basics so we're all aligned. ACOS. What's a good ACOS?
A good ACOS is one where you are profitable. That's really that's the simplest answer. There are lots of ACOSs. You'll see people showing screenshots of ACOSs like 3% and 6%, and other people will look at their accounts and they'll say, "Oh my God, I've never been able to get below 30%. What's going on?" ACOS is a function of a lot of factors. So one factor is your average selling price. If you have a product that sells for $9 and the average click on Amazon is $1, because that's what the average click on Amazon is. If you're spending $1 a click, even if you're converting 1 out of every 5 clicks, that's still a 50 or 60% ACOS.
Right.
And if you have a product that's like $175, you have a lot of room to be inefficient and still have an ACOS that looks nice. I can get 100 clicks and I'll still be running a 18% ACOS on products like that. So you have to look at the details of the product you're selling. You have to look at how competitive the environment is. And you have to look at your goal for the advertising. So in some cases, the advertising is intended to help your organic position. You're driving traffic for a keyword and you want the organic spot to be high so that you're making a lot of organic sales. In a case like that, where you're using advertising as a tool, a specific tool for ranking, you should be happy with a break-even ACOS or even slight loss. Of course, profitable is better, but if you're using it for the goal of those organic sales, and there are a lot of organic sales to be had, be happy accomplishing that goal, and the ACOS is not as important. In another case where your margins are very low and the product is going to sell anyway because it is well placed for those keywords, you need a much, much lower ACOS to be viable. Again, it depends on your goals. It depends on how new the product is also. So if your product is brand new, you're going to have a higher ACoS while Amazon and shoppers figure out how good you are. If you've got a product which owns the marketplace, you should have a very low ACoS because it takes very little to convert into sales.
Yeah,
So
I think I have every single example that you just said. I'm thinking, yeah, for that one, yeah, for that one. I also like to think, like, I look at the total cost. So if my ACoS is really high and I basically bought every sale, that's a terrible situation. If my ACoS is very high, but when I add in my overall organic sales and the total cost, total ACoS across the whole thing is reasonable, then I'm okay. So, it just gets to be a huge math exercise to figure out whether or not, A is fine and B is fine and A plus B is fine.
Doesn't have to be that huge of an exercise. One of the things I do for my clients is I have a total ACoS report in which it pulls the entire inventory. It pulls a couple of data points from Amazon, and it says, all right, you sold this many units of this product. Here's your total sales. You spent this much on ads. When we compare the advertising spend against your total sales, this is your total ACoS. So it ends up being, obviously, as long as you're making organic sales, that's bringing down your overall marketing costs. And there's a lot of times where it can give you some really, really interesting insights. So in some cases, it'll turn out that you might have a very high ACoS, 50, 60%. But when you figure that your organic sales are 6-to-1 ratio, all of a sudden that 60% turns into 8 points, which is a much more acceptable marketing expense for your product.
Yes.
In other cases, you might have an ACoS of like 30%, but all your orders come from ads. You get nothing organic. So it goes from 30% to 27%. And if your margin is 30 points, you're not really making any money with that advertising. So knowing the larger picture is a big factor.
I agree. I totally. So I'm thinking, like, there used to only be automatic campaigns. That's how long I've been selling on Amazon. Then they had manual campaigns. And this is a two-part question. So the first part is, I would sit there and I'd look at the auto campaigns and it's like, oh, everybody said, oh, run an auto campaign and then wait a month and then do your manual campaign. I'm like, but I know how to get keywords. I know what I need to bid on. I can find all this stuff. Why do I need to teach or have Amazon teach me if I know my product? This auto campaign, I never really got a good answer for that. Like, it's like, oh no, you have to, like, no, I don't have to teach Amazon what my keywords are. I know what they are. So why can't I go right to manual?
Is that both parts of the question, or is
no?
That
There's a second part. Yeah, there's another part. The second. I'll tell you the second part so you can maybe meld right into it. Then evolve a little bit further. They had these tools. And a lot of people were trying to sell me advertising support via a tool. Like, it would just click over things and do those things. And then beyond even that, they were trying to sell me people who would run my advertising. But I know they were using these tools. So give me all your thoughts on that whole mess of a question.
Okay, so people who just run automatic campaigns and use that as a substitute for good keyword investment in their product are either lazy or don't understand how the system works. In fact, if you know your product well and you're launching it to the marketplace, what we do these days is actually the exact reverse of what you said. What we'll do on day one is we will run only an exact campaign or only an exact and a phrase match campaign with only the set of keywords that very, very directly match the product. And we are basically telling Amazon, this is what our product is. This is what we expect to get sales for. This is what we expect to rank for. And we tell Amazon what our product is through driving that focused ads. And only after a couple of weeks or a month do we bring in broad campaigns or do we bring in automatic campaigns. Because once Amazon knows what your product is, it'll be easier for it to figure out where you belong. If you don't give it any guidance, it's throwing your product everywhere. And one of the things that we have to do when we start an automatic campaign on day one is to look at that search term report every single day to clean out terms that have nothing to do with the product. You might have a product that's a bottle, and it doesn't know whether you're a bottle opener or a water bottle or some other, or any kind of bottle. Like, you can't imagine how many kinds of bottles there are, and it's throwing you everywhere while it figures things out. But if you know what your product is and you say, listen, this is a water bottle, it's a plastic water bottle, it's a non-insulated water bottle, and you're advertising exactly those terms, Amazon learns very quickly that you are a non-insulated, transparent water bottle made out of plastic. And when you throw in the automatic campaigns, they're going to start to put you in more places where that kind of product belongs, but you might not have thought of it. So you might not have thought of like certain brands or certain other related terms, but Amazon knows that that's where it belongs. So you got to give it that training in the beginning. Now, again, that's where you know your product. You, of course, are a keyword person. So you know about what your product is and about what the keywords that match to it are. A lot of people are not. They are very vague. Even when they're introducing their own private label products, they have a vague idea of where it belongs. So in those cases, we might have to run automatic campaigns sooner. But the work that I do is to try and figure out where you belong at first to be more efficient. So to answer the first part of your question, they're telling you the opposite of what would work best in Amazon's system. To answer the second part of it, regarding tools, tools are important. I use tools myself. I use a lot of tools, from Cerebro to from Helium 10 to keyword trackers to custom software to automation tools. I've got a whole suite of tools. My monthly bills for my tools are run into the 5 figures, and I'm not exaggerating.
Wow.
But having said that, the reality is that the tools are as good as your use of them. So just like you can buy tools at Home Depot and you can either make a birdhouse or you can make something that belongs in a horror show with the same tools, the same thing will happen with the tools you use for your advertising. If you build your campaigns out properly and you give the system the right guidance in terms of what to do, just like you're giving Amazon the right guidance, you will get different results as opposed to using all of their default settings. When all of their default settings none of them might apply to your product.
Right. That makes sense. So it's beyond just like, for me, I felt like Amazon now is almost supplanted because they're starting to give you the keywords. So I basically have a kind of a shortcut tool that I can use to refine things. Like, oh, I never thought of that keyword. All right, I'll put that in there if I'm looking at it. If I'm looking at it, which is my biggest problem, is just a lot of time, and I'm not very, I'm like, I'm afraid to touch anything. Yeah, that's right. It's just a lot of work. So I'm getting close to the outsource process for sure. So let's think about, so there are other vehicles to do. We've talked about automatic campaigns. We talked about manual campaigns. What are the new and exciting, like now I want you to get into, if advertising can at all be sexy, the sexy stuff that people should be looking at. If you know how to do auto, you know how to do manual. I feel like most people don't go beyond that. I mean, we've done some video ads, but I really haven't. And I've done the headline ads, but I know there's a whole host of things. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's out there that we should be considering.
So you mentioned the sexiest thing that's out there, which is the video ads. Video ads are still not fully being taken advantage of by sellers, simply because it takes work to create videos as opposed to anything. I can sit here right now at my computer and I can create all kinds of ad campaigns, but I can't create a video. So that requires a work which requires, that requires work that necessitates going outside of your computer system and outside of whatever you just happen to order. You've got to do the work to create a video. And those videos convert really, really well. Amazon's had them available for something over a year now. And even till now, I turn on a video, boom, the sales start happening if you're keywording properly. There's almost no other type of ad campaign that will boost sales in that exact way. Headline ads will help you, anywhere from 2 to 30%, depending on how much you're invested in it. And DSP is very expensive for the sales you get. You want to be a pretty advanced seller before you get into DSP.
What was that last one?
It's called DSP, demand side programming or display side programming, something like that.
No, I don't even know what that is.
Those are the ads that follow you all around the internet. So if you look at a product on Amazon and then you see an ad for it when you're on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or somewhere, that basically is that's DSP in effect. And you can do it for people that look for your own product. You can do it for people that search for a competitor's product. You can do it for categories. There's a lot of opportunities for it.
Which when you said competitor,
but it's expensive.
Sorry, it's expensive.
It's expensive because the shoppers are not focused on the product. The shoppers are not necessarily ready to buy yet.
Right. They always say that you say your name 3 times.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 7, I think.
Well, I don't know. The car commercials seem to do it. If you get a local car dealer, it's like Sansone Auto, and it goes on and on. You're like, all right, I'm pretty sure that's burned into my brain forever. I'll never go there.
There's research that says that you need to see a product 7 times before the shopper is ready to purchase. Wow. So,
especially a big ticket item.
Yeah, I mean, especially a big ticket item, but that means that you have to figure in a certain number of clicks and traffic before your product really gets its traction in space.
So the last question I have, and then I open it up to the group, is how do we call it? Defensive advertising, right? So if you're looking for I sell soap, so you're looking for, I don't know, pine scented soap. I'm going to try to get the headline ad in there. I'm going to try to get an auto ad in there, and I'm going to get, when you click and you go to my listing, I'm going to try to buy the other ads. When does that make sense? I think it's a great thing, but I think it's very costly.
So, all right. So there's a couple of layers to that answer. The first thing is, I'll clarify a little bit what defensive advertising refers to. Defensive advertising refers to you capturing the sale when somebody is looking for your product. So if you have a brand, you want to make sure that when the shopper looks for your brand, that they are not seeing ads for someone else's products. In extreme cases where people are not being defensive, other brand products can actually rank well for your own products. So you obviously don't want that to happen. So basically you'd be running ads against your own brand name. Now that's one type of advertising that you'd run, and you see it all the time. There are plenty of, all over the internet, you'll run an ad to look for something. You'll run a search to look for something, whether it's on Google or Amazon or anywhere, and you'll see an ad for that product, even though there's an organic listing, which is going to show up pretty soon afterwards. There is still an ad as well. Those brands are basically making sure that they rule out any possibility of somebody buying something else. They have to make that sale. They've already done half the work of pre-qualifying you by getting you interested in the first place, however you came to it. So they don't want to waste that and let it go. So that's the first layer of brand defense advertising. And then, of course, there is on your own product page, like you mentioned, above the product page, at the top of the product page, and throughout the rows of alternative options, you want to show up there as well. Now, the thinking behind it being expensive, I look at it differently. It's more expensive to lose the sale once you've already gotten the click than it is to raise the click price a bit from what you spent the first time. So if you spent $1 to get the customer to your product page, and then there's a second dollar to go to the other style of your product, you've spent $2 to make a sale. If you don't spend that and they go to another product, you spend $1 to get $0.
That makes sense. That's a good point.
So it's much better to have a bit higher of a conversion price than to get no conversion.
And then it would average out too. Hopefully you get a return. You get a return buy as well. So
there has never been a situation where the price of defensive advertising was the difference of profitability. It has never occurred. You might look at an individual campaign and say, hey, this is running at a high A cost, or why am I spending $1 to advertise my own product when they already look for me? But the reality is that you are converting in a bigger picture to hold on to your customers.
So I'm looking at, I have a couple more questions. I want to ask this one because I think it's, before I ask the other one. Someone in the chat is asking Chakra is asking, how do you keyword a video?
So you keyword it the same way you keyword your product. You're still showing up for the same searches. So whatever keywords you would apply to your regular advertising, those are the same keywords you'll apply to your video searches. Just the video shows up as you search through Amazon.
Okay. So you can actually put keywords in as you're building that video ad? Oh,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, it's
I'm not
basically
paying
a
that much
sponsored.
attention.
Yeah, it's basically a sponsored brand ad. Just
Okay.
the creative is a video instead of a creative of something else. So you'll be able to target keywords, or you can target competitors as well with video. So that's also something which can be useful.
Yeah, my head's spinning here thinking all the things I could do. Just need time, lots of time. We were talking early, is there I did have one thing, that was one thing on my notes. Do you ever see anybody do anything crazy with advertising? Like when you took over their account and you're looking at it, like what are they doing? What are they thinking? Something that you thought was kind of crazy, or?
I've seen it all. I've seen accounts where they don't run any advertising on keywords. All of the advertising is only for product targeting. They are only targeting other people's products without any keyword targeting at all.
Oh.
I've seen campaigns where people only run manual targeting of one type and nothing else. I've seen it all. You can't imagine. And I never cease to be amazed.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then what they say to you when you say, "Why do you do?" It's kind of a hard thing to bring up. Like, why are you not doing any keyword advertising?
So part of my work is understanding what people are doing, and I'll say, listen, I noticed this. Is there a reason that you did this, or was it something you're just trying out? I try to be mild about what I see. I don't want to offend my client. Or even worse, I don't want to offend the I don't want to offend the client, and I sure don't want to offend the prospect who hasn't even signed up. So what I will do is I will say, let's review what you're doing. And I say, I see this, and I see this, and I see this. Okay, I don't see this style so often. What led you to do it this way? And I won't point out that nobody ever does it this way.
Right.
And listen, I give respect to whatever reasons they came up with. Some of them will feel a little bit sheepish and they'll say, well, I just tried this out. I said, listen, you have to start somewhere. I'll give you the credit for having tried that, and we go from here. That's it. They have, listen, they are doing more than somebody who hasn't advertised anything. So you give them that credit, and then you move on to stuff that will be a lot more effective.
Like you've got like a lot of room to grow too. So you can have huge wins for them.
The bar is low in those cases, which is great for me.
Mike has a question.
That'd be great for them also.
Yeah, it's a win-win. Mike wants to know, what do you do if you can't get Amazon to index a keyword for a private label product and they won't show ads with manual campaign and that keyword?
So the specifics of the situation matter. There are certain keywords which Amazon doesn't let you advertise on, certain categories. There are times where your product might not have the word in a place where it can be indexed and you don't realize it. And there are some cases where you need to get Amazon to re-index your listing. They'll say it's indexing, they'll tell you all kinds of cockamamie answers, but there comes a point where you have to escalate it to the catalog team and say, my listing is relevant for this keyword and I am not indexing for it. And that's it. And then you have to push it. I mean, this is the same for all sorts of cases across Amazon. There are times when you'll get all the stupidest answers, even though you know what's right. And it goes for indexing also. There are times where you won't index for a water bottle, even if you're a water bottle. You have to tell Amazon, I am a water bottle and I'm not indexing. And the first word of my listing is a water bottle and every picture is a water bottle. So we have to fix this. And when you tell them the magic word, please re-index my listing, it's sort of like a hard reset. And it usually fixes it after that. Now, your advertising, by the way, might not show because the competition is insane. There are certain keywords where you might have to spend $12 to be on anywhere on the first or second page. Things like supplements or renewables or consumables or things like that, like coffee, for example. There are people spending like $45 a click. So your 80-cent click is not showing because you don't index for coffee. It's showing because you need to add 2 zeros to your click price.
Yeah. So what should the folks listening, like what question am I not asking that you think I should be asking about at PPC?
So PPC is obviously it's my business, but the truth is that PPC is a big subject. Amazon offers us a lot of ways to do it, and even within the lot of ways to do it, you'll find any number of people giving you different strategies and ideas and techniques. As far as questions go, there aren't really any obvious questions. I mean, we have covered most of the basics of the idea of how advertising works, of trying to be intentional, trying to find a balance between intentional and being wide ranging, and trying to keep in mind where your product fits into Amazon's system. Once you have that groundwork, lots of the rest of it will fit into place, but it also takes time. I mean, there are very, very few people who turn on the ad part of their Seller Central and immediately get all the gears and ideas of how it works. So there is definitely a process to it.
Unfortunately, I always learn by spending money or spending it badly, maybe, and like, that didn't work.
We've all done it. I mean, there have been, I can tell you any number of stories. As one example, way back when, before Google or before even Amazon existed, we used to advertise on Yahoo, and advertise on Yahoo was the actual website. And there was a digital camera that we were advertising where we wanted to spend, I don't know, like 70, 80 cents per click. The camera was expensive. And what did we do? We said we want to be at the top. We saw where we were for number 2. We said we were 60 cents for number 2, and we wanted to be number 1. So we set the system to say we want to be number 1. Our competitor figured out that our bid was very high, like we put a cap of like $10 or something. He figured out what our top bid was, and he bid like $9.98. So our bid was going to be $9.99, but his bid was only like 81 cents because number 3 was 80 cents. So he went 1 cent above. And in the end of the day, we spent like $950 on a single product for like 80 clicks. And we said, what the hell happened? And we learned that lesson really fast. But we also learned it in a way that wrecked our competition, because he did that as like an experiment and he was giggling all day. Once we learned it, we decided to target that competitor, we made him overspend for like 1.5 years straight. We were always happy. We were always happy to be one spot. We were always happy to be one spot under him, always, all day long. No matter where he was, we just wanted to be the one spot under him because we knew we're pushing him to spend the max possible above us.
Nice. All right.
So you learn. Yeah.
For those, Abe and I were talking earlier today. Does anybody have any other questions that I missed? No, I think I got it. If anybody would like Abe to take a look at your ad account, and give you a review, he's more than willing to do that. He went through mine. I found it very, very useful. Means I have a lot of work to do mostly, but which I knew. So
it was pretty insightful. There were things you didn't expect to hear in there when we looked at it together.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't that you're doing a great job. I knew I wasn't getting that, but there were things, room for improvement. So I'm fine with that. I really appreciate everybody's time tonight, especially you, Abe. This was really informative. I learned a lot. I thought I had a decent handle on advertising, and there's just so much more out there that I could be doing and doing better. I'm going to give everybody a chance. One more question. No more questions. Thank you very much. I will put all Abe's contact details at the end of the video, which should be out in the next day or so. So if you want to follow back up with that, how can they find you in the meantime?
In the meantime, I am available on all the ways of social media. So I'm on Facebook, I am on LinkedIn, I am on Instagram, I am on Clubhouse. I'm on Clubhouse way too much. Wherever you want to find me, if you look for my name, you will find me. My cousin, who has the same name as me, is also on all of these platforms, but he doesn't have a beard, so it's hard to mix us up.
Okay, easy to distinguish. That's great. Well, thank you again, and just look for the video, come out in a couple days. If you know anybody who missed it, let them know. And please reach out to Abe to help you with your advertising. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.